Another interesting thing going on is the U.S. is no longer funding a lot of these UN programs. And where does that leave the UN moving to? Nairobi? Also, we reported on the $2.5 billion healthcare agreement between the US and Kenya, and the Kenyan Supreme Court put a stop to it, at least temporarily, because they were saying that it violates Kenyans' um, private, like medical privacy. Which again, I feel like these are good things because it shows that the systems are working, right? The judiciary overridden an executive action. My perspective on that, first of all, the U.S. gives all this money out, and they were giving it to NGOs, and the NGOs were scamming. You guys talk about corruption. Billions and billions and billions of dollars from the U.S. just gets corrupted and wasted all the time. And so they pulled out of USAID and all that stuff, and they were getting a lot of pushback. But if you notice, they're making direct agreements with the countries now. So that's why they made the aid package for the healthcare with Kenya directly. And I think that's better to give the aid directly to the Kenyan government. I know you guys are skeptical of the government, but honestly, I'd rather your government have the money than these stupid NGOs. Maybe you disagree, but I mean, that's my perspective. I think it gives the sovereign country of Kenya the money versus some of these private organizations that who knows what the heck they're doing, and has been found that they're defrauding and taking most of the money for themselves. Now, the wrinkle in there is that I think what the U.S. was, and this makes sense from both perspectives, right? So the U.S. says, well, if we're going to give you this aid, then we want to know like the results of the aid and what's happening. And I don't know the exact details about the exact type of information that they're getting, but in general, that makes sense, right? Like if I'm giving you money for a purpose, I'd like to know like where it's going and what the result is and if it's working or not. Because if I give you all this money in aid and then the health situation doesn't improve, you're just wasting money. On the Kenyan side, it's like, yeah, but we don't want to give you certain kinds of information about our citizens, which is also a legitimate thing. So I think it's pretty cool, that interaction. And again, when I see, I don't know, the government standing up for the people, I think that's good. I think that they'll come to a compromise agreement where, like, whatever information the U.S. needs or whatever, they'll be able to get at least enough of the information for it to make sense. But the problem is, if I'm giving you money, I do get to kind of dictate what happens. So we'll see. We'll see. It seems like the U.S. though is not just pulling out of doing aid. They are pulling out of the middleman of the aid, and they'd rather make direct agreements with the countries that are going to be probably more beneficial and a little bit more, like, I don't want to say transparent, but at least the U.S. will know more of like what's happening with the money. Because I was just talking to a friend about this the other day, like the amount of taxes that we pay and the amount of money. You guys talk about corruption in Africa. We would be living in the future if the money wasn't getting corrupted the way it is. Like the amount, it's like an infinite amount of money getting defrauded all over the place. And you see that, like just in Minnesota, it's alleged that it's like billions of dollars in one city. All these programs, all these things that are, like the money's going to it and it's not resulting in anything. All this aid to all these other countries. If it actually went to the things it was supposed to go to, like the world would be like perfect. Because it's like it's like an unimaginable amount of money that's being spent. but I think 80% of it is going to friends of politicians, the NGOs, the companies. Look, I did 15 months in Iraq, okay? And I actually watched a documentary while I was in Iraq about and that was the thing. When I got there, when you get to Camp Victory, which is like the major base, the airport, that's where like the main place everything comes. There's more freaking civilians there than military personnel. And when you talk to the civilians, these guys, like the lady that worked at like the shop that was the manager of what we call the PX, but it was like the store. Like it was like a general store that everyone would go to, was making like 5 or 6 times what my Army salary was to be the manager of the store. And that's a salary to a person. So just imagine what the company was, Halliburton KBR, which prior was owned by the vice president of the United States. You don't think that was their friends getting a bunch of money? They were charging, I remember watching a documentary, they were charging $50 per laundry bag to do laundry for U.S. soldiers. You know how many laundry bags I did while I was in Iraq? Do you know how much? And they were paying like Indians and Ugandans and other people for a lot of these things, and you know they weren't paying them. That they were paying the U.S. citizens, like the Western people, you know, a lot of money. But like the third party labor that they brought in, like a sick amount of money is being wasted. It's going in people's pockets.